Well, welcome everyone. We're doing kind of a casual Q&A team talk this week. You guys have been really positive about when we do these, and so we thought we would do some more of them. And you guys can get to know us more on the team side. And also, if we have time at the end, we're going to be answering questions as well. I have those pulled up. But there are six of us coaches. Sam's gone this weekend, but so we can't get through everyone's personal goals and like processes this call. So we'll kind of be doing that over probably the next month. We have our monthly mental health and mindset call next week with Lindy, and I'm just really excited for that. As always, she's going to be walking through some different things in regards to building a positive relationship with body image, and some application there as well. So that will be next week. And then we'll probably carry forward and talk through the rest of us after that. So today we kind of have talked as a team on goals, and we're going to talk through those who have similar goals on each call. So Kacey and Henrietta are both in kind of like a maintenance or surplus phase of life right now. So we're going to talk through their goals, and then also just what their current lifestyle looks like in regards to tracking and training and all of those things. And then I think on the next call that we do, we'll probably get more into cutting, and just what that can look like with performance goals attached to it, and more just the straight physique goals, as Julie, myself, and Autumn are kind of working on that in different ways right now. So I think that'll be interesting to talk through as well. So talking through, Kacey has to jump off a little early today. So we're going to kind of start with her and talk through, what life looks like, what she's been doing. And Kacey, maybe you just kind of give us a little summary, and then we'll ask you some questions. And if you guys have questions, ask them in the chat box, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, awesome. Good morning, everybody. So I was trying to think about where to start with this. So I'm going to give you guys like a very brief background kind of on my like nutrition and training experience, and then get into a little bit more detail of like, okay, what am I doing right now? I think there's a lot of interest in like, oh, you're a nutrition coach. What are you doing? So hopefully we can all give you a little bit of insight into what that means for us. I guess kind of high level, I wanted everyone to know I have not always had a wonderful relationship with food. Like many of you, I didn't always have, I think, really the knowledge and the education to understand how to best fuel my body. And it was really through finding CrossFits and educating myself and hiring other coaches and learning more about my body, that has led me to have honestly a really awesome relationship with food and my body today. I definitely have moments where I'm like, oh, my clothes don't feel so great right now. I don't like how this looks on me. I think that that's pretty actually normal and healthy to have moments like that. But it's when those moments turn into days, and where your emotions are then kind of what overshadows your whole day, that's kind of where we get into the space of, all right, well, maybe we should kind of take a look at relationship with food and relationship with your body more than anything else. So I'm in a really good place with that right now, and have been for a while. I have two kids. They are 5 and 2, or almost 5 and 2. And a lot of my experience counting macros has been postpartum, and wanting to feel, of course, wanting to lose some of the weight that I gained during pregnancy, but also just wanting to feel my best, feel more like myself. I was at my personal, like, strongest I've ever been, like right when I got pregnant, the first time. And during my first pregnancy, I lost a ton of muscle. So postpartum, I was actually a decent amount lighter than I ever had been before. And it was kind of this balance of liking how clothes felt, and I looked in the mirror, but also missing being as strong as I possibly was before. And finding that balance between wanting to be my own self and understanding that, I'm probably not going to be my old self again, and I need to find what my new normal feels good right now. And that, I think, is probably an acceptance process that a lot of women go through, right? Is either being super competitive or being in really good shape, whatever that is, and then measuring your progress by wanting to be back there rather than focusing on things that your body can do now or what you want to do in the future. So that acceptance process, but also like wanting to look towards the future, I think is really helpful. So I've spent a lot of time in cuts and maintenance through and like post two pregnancies. And the last time, honestly, that I was seriously tracking macros was through a deficit and then back to maintenance. And I stopped about a year ago. So for the past year, I've been eating mostly intuitively. I weigh myself when I feel like it. And I used to weigh myself every day when I was kind of more accurately tracking things. My body weight fluctuates about 4 to 5 pounds, depending on when I weigh myself. And I'm okay with that because at the end of the day, I go back to, all right, how am I feeling right now? What is my energy like? What am I sleeping like? Do I feel good in my clothes? Am I hungry and moody, or do I feel like my relationship with food is suffering, or is that in a good place? So I'm constantly asking myself those questions as kind of my own formal check-in. But through experiencing tracking so much, I can look at food, or I can look at a meal or reflect back on my day. And I know if I weigh under 8 on protein or calories, or if this was a high carb day, because I've had that experience. So I think it's important to know that not everyone's going to love tracking, and that's okay. I do think it's kind of a means to an end, but there's so much to learn by it that when it comes to a point in your life where you don't need to or don't want to track, you still have a lot of those lessons there. So how I approach my day is I try to not let myself get super hungry, because I know at that point I don't make great choices. I reach for sugar. So staying ahead of my hunger and always prioritizing protein. So when I approach food, it's protein, then vegetables, then a good starch. I try to have that nice balance. When I approach a snack, it's always a protein forward snack, something like Greek yogurt or cottage cheese. And then I try to honor my hunger, because again, being so in touch with your body, if I'm hungry and feeling hungry, I know it's because I'm actually hungry, right? And not because I'm bored or stressed out or maybe just not hydrated enough. And again, this is just something that I know because I had the experience under my belt. I've tried it out and I've tested it. So I know in a range about how many calories I'm eating in a day. Once every like 6 months, out of curiosity, I might put it into my Fitness Pal just to kind of double check where I am. But the things that led up to eating more intuitively are, one, I had been very, very seriously tracking macros for a year-ish. And I got to a point in just my daily life where I didn't feel like I had the mental capacity to dedicate to it, to be honest with you. That doesn't mean my health goals went out the window, but my goals changed. I met my goals and I didn't have something super concrete to work towards. My mental capacity for tracking and preparing meals like I wasn't there. And it felt really good to have other things in my life that I wanted to make a higher priority. And I wanted to make space for that. And I think what really, again, allowed me to make that transition was trusting myself and the experience that I had been through, And then the knowledge that I had gained through tracking so much or having that experience. So not to sound weird, but I feel like I had earned it in a certain way.
Yeah, you learned a lot and
Yeah.
have that experience to go off of. Yeah.
Sure.
What would you say, like what piece of advice would you have for someone that maybe is tracking now, is working towards their goals on just how to transition from tracking to where you are at?
Yeah. So I think a lot of it is trusting yourself in the process that you've been through, and to do it slowly. And there's really no timeline. If you're someone who feels like, okay, I've had enough tracking, I'm in a good place with my goals and my relationship with my food and body, maybe that looks like taking one day off a week and still eating your normal foods, right? It's not an excuse to eat things because you don't want to track them. And once one day a week starts to feel good, okay, then maybe it's 2 days a week. And you can kind of progress from there. Or you can approach in a different way. Maybe it's I eat the same thing for breakfast every day. So maybe I just don't track breakfast for the next week or two. Right? Most of us are kind of creatures of habit. And slowly progressing from there. Then maybe I'll take out a couple of lunches and one dinner for the week. And through that process, I really do think you can build trust with yourself and allow yourself to take a step back. It's like, oh, nope, actually, I need to go back and add those dinners in, right? Before I move forward. And just being okay with it, taking some time and being okay, honestly, making mistakes, because that happens and there's nothing wrong with that. But just having, I think, a little bit of confidence in the work that you've put in so far can go a long way.
Yeah. What would you say, kind of last question for you on that, is the value of, if someone's in a cut, going to maintenance before they move to intuitive eating?
Oh, huge, huge. Highly recommend it. And again, just from the knowledge base of being able to see, okay, what does food quantity look like for me in maintenance versus a cut, right? The more that you can teach your eyes what you're looking at and what it looks like to be at a maintenance, I think the better prepared you are to actually go that way, right? And just be able to use your eyes to evaluate your food rather than rely on a food scale.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're cutting, it's hard to eat intuitively if you go from cutting, because you're used to being a little bit hungry all the time. So it's hard to know what maintenance even feels like, right? So
Yep. And you need that accuracy during a cut if you want to be successful. Whereas when you're going through a reverse diet or maintenance, there's more flexibility, right? If you go over your calories one day, or if you forget to track one day, the overall impact just isn't there like there is in a cut. So.
Right. Yeah. Thanks, Kacey. Anything else you want to add?
I don't think so. I would encourage you guys, like, talk to your coach if there's something that you're nervous or curious about. I think we've kind of all been through these different stages of life and approaching our nutrition. You'll hear about it in the next few weeks, but lean on us, rely on our experiences to help you.
Cool. Thank you. Appreciate
Okay.
it.
I got to jump off, guys.
Hey,
Bye.
see you, Kacey. Henrietta. Okay. So talking through where you're at right now, you can just go ahead and start and give us a background kind of on what you've done, and then where you're at and what your goals are and what life looks like for you at the moment.
Yeah. So background, I think when I was trying to be quick here, but when I was 15, I don't have any background with like from from in any sport at all. I did a little bit of gymnastics when I was little, but not something that stuck with me. I danced, but not something that, created some strength or anything like that. So when I was 15, I started working out in the gym and got presented to, to weights and not machines, quite, early there. And so my mentality around training and my body has been like, I want to be strong, like from a teenager. So I remember I was in the gym a couple of hours. I would come home and I would just like, I have to eat because I want to build muscle. That was like me. And I built muscle quite quickly, and I like that. And that's how it is when you start working with weights, you build muscle quite quickly. But then there was so much knowledge that I didn't have that I like, well, now when I look back at it, what if I would have known back then what I know today, right? So but that's not like it is what it is, and you can never stop learning. So, and I think I got to a point, always trained, but always also eaten what I want. I've never had any issues with food. I've never had any and I know if I felt like, oh, now I've had now weigh a couple of pounds too much, okay, then I'll just restrict a little bit. Like that has been my past. And then I've become to a place where I want to be. And then, I've been happy. And then when I was pregnant with my second child, so I have 3 kids, oldest turning 14, youngest turning 4. And when I was pregnant with Nathaniel, a friend of mine, I was working in a clothing store at that moment, and she was trying on clothes and I was helping her. And she did CrossFit then for a while, and she looked amazing. I was like, and I always, instead of feeling like, oh, I want to look like that, and it turning into something negative, I always like, yes, that fuels me. Like, I'm gonna look like that when this kid is out. I'm gonna look like that. And so that was like the first time really where something in me, or maybe the second time from when I was 15, but where something sparked in me where I really had a goal, where I wanted to look and get, even stronger and evolve. So I started training a lot after Nathaniel was born. And I'd always trained before, but it was more like intentional. But at the same time, at that point, I didn't have as much nutrition. Again, always ate, what I wanted, but to really create a physique where you look strong and where you have that mass of fat that makes you be defined, you need to be very, it takes knowledge, and it takes most times tracking, not always, but and I wasn't there back then. So that was the first time I started working with Michaela, I think most of you know, and that was the first time I on purpose started tracking my calories, to see like, okay, I'm training my ass off in the gym. I know that I can train, but what can really dialing in my nutrition, what can that do with the appearance that I have? And it made a huge deal, of course. And that was the beginning of my nutrition coach career. But that was something that I'm still using myself as an experiment as well. Because I think it's extremely important with acceptance. For me, it's very important with boundaries for my time, my mental health, and that is something that I have always thought was important. But now when I have more knowledge under my belt, balance is something, and I think all of my clients have heard me talk about balance a lot, but it's very important for me. And now in my life, I have 3 kids. I'm working, because pre-working as nutrition coach, we were traveling because of my husband's work. So I didn't work for a few years. I was just a mom, basically, not just a mom, but yeah. So my life has changed a lot now, because now I'm working a lot. I'm still a mom of 3. Andreas is working a lot, and kids are getting older. So there's activities here, and there's all know how it is. Life is busy. And then I want to take care of myself as well. And we have moved a lot, and that takes a lot of energy. So for the moment, I am training at home. I hate training at home, but that's what's applicable to me right now. I go for walks. I think about my nutrition, but I do not track. I haven't tracked in a long time. What I'm noticing and what I'm kind of experimenting with myself right now is, okay, how will my body change when I'm intuitive, both with my nutrition, but also like with my activity level. Like my activity level is lower now than what it was when I was training CrossFit 5 days a week or 4 days a week. And the reason why I'm not training CrossFit at the moment is because the times available in my CrossFit gym does not fit with my life right now. So it's just how, and I'm not willing to stress out or make it all work, because that's where my boundaries comes in. It's my stress levels are very important for me to keep low. So that's why I'm giving myself a lot of acceptance and grace. And if that means that my body will change with that, I'm okay with that, because I know what I need to do to get myself fit or fitter again. So I'm cool with not being at my fittest right now, because I just value my stress levels more, basically.
Yeah. And I feel like you can only have so many things, right, that you're juggling at one time. And you have, for those of you guys that don't know, Henriette is moving back to Norway this summer, and she's building a home. So she's navigating and managing all of that too. And so I imagine when your life settles down there and you get your bearings and you get your schedule, you'll be able to like conceptualize, okay, now what do I want? But you're kind of in survival mode in some ways too. And so managing, and like, it sounds to me like nourishing and taking care of yourself are top priority, as they should be in this kind of a crazy limbo stage for you. And so I love that I think you do such a good job of owning your choices and like honoring the stage of life that you're at, because how harmful would it be for you right now if you decided to do a cut, but you couldn't because your life wouldn't allow for it. And so you had the stress and the shame of like not hitting your numbers, not being consistent, on top of everything else right now. Like that would be really harmful, right? So you're smarter than that. You know, that would not be a good idea for you. And so you're honoring where you're at and deciding what that looks like. So will you talk a little bit more about just how you own your choices in that sense? Like how do you do that? What does that process look like for you?
Yeah. So for me, first of all, like taking control, like, okay, I'm taking control over simple things that is not taking up a lot of energy for me. So that is making sure that I'm drinking 3 liters of water, like 100 ounces of water ish. I'm not tracking it, but I've tracked that very specifically for so long before. So I know what that looks like. So that is something that I'm very, I'm drinking my water. And then I'm making sure that I'm getting in movement daily. And now I'm at a point where sometimes I have to choose between taking a walk and getting a workout in. And now I'm choosing a walk because I want that. And maybe that's not the best choice for physique, but it's the best choice for my mental health. So like, that's what I'm 100%. Doing. So, and at the same time as I'm trying to figure out how am I able to fit in a workout as well, I'm still in the process of figuring that out. And one of the ways I do that is like, okay, maybe I can get up a little bit earlier in the morning so I can get it in the morning. But that means I will have to go to bed earlier. And then for me, that is a mental process that I need to go through. Am I willing to go to bed earlier? Like, I'm not sure if I am. I'm figuring that out. I think I am, but that's how I work. I use time to like, I need to, just go through it in my brain before it actually happens, or it's a slow progress. So I'm still there with the progress. And while I do this progress, I'm making sure I always have protein. Like my first goal when I eat food, protein is on my mind always. So I base my meals of protein. I get veggies for all meals. I get fruit and veggies and berries for all meals is like one of my go-tos. So that I know that my I have a lot of good nurture that I'm getting in. I'm definitely eating more candy. I'm eating more fats now. And when I mean fats, I eat more cheese. I eat more salamis. I eat more, not unhealthy food, but I know that I'm eating differently now than what I would have done if I was tracking and if I had a physique goal. And that is also why I look a little bit different now. And I'm like to look at that as an experiment. How can I just eat what I want? And what will that do to my body? I'm willing to let that change. Basically, I'm 10 pounds heavier now than I was in my lowest deficits. I'm still wearing tummy, still wearing the same clothes. Like I'm still wearing a tummy. Now, what's it called when you have
Crop
a top?
tops.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm still wearing the same.
You're embracing where you're at and enjoying.
But I'm looking a little bit different. And I like my body now as well, even though, yes, of course, I love a six pack, but I also know what it takes to have a six pack. So, so I think that for me, it's just about I'm making it an experiment to see how can my body change. And I might get to a point where I feel like, no, this is not, I don't want to do this anymore. And then that means that, okay, I will have to increase my my energy level. I will have to train more. I will have to move more. How can I fit that in? Then I will need to prioritize that, or I will need to clean up I will need to take away some candy or some cheeses at night or whatever, you know. So I know that I know exactly what I need to do if I get to a point where, no, I need a change now. It's just right now, I'm making sure I'm getting enough fuel so my body is balanced. So when I actually want to and have time to prioritize my physique, my body will respond like that because it's in balance. That's the most important thing for me, to create balance, both hormonally within and mentally, so that my body is just ready to go when my life is in a place where it suits better. And you fall is that. So and I think for me as a personally, I thrive on getting to a point where I really crave something. So now I'm kind of building that also craving sensation of, oh, I want to get fit. Like that fuels me to kind of like, yeah, so I'm using that as fuel instead of using it as something to be frustrated about, because it's basically my choice. I could have done everything this whole spring, but I know that I wouldn't feel good if I did.
Yeah, and you have to make sacrifice, right? That would mean probably less time with family, less sleep in your case. It would mean more stress, and that's not what you want to prioritize right now. So I love that you're honoring where you're at and embracing what comes with it. Because I mean, being in a cut and losing body fat, like that can be exciting, but it's also really exciting to be able to eat intuitively and have way more calorie flexibility. And that's essentially, like, I want to just start with Kacey and Henriette, because that's essentially where all of us should spend most of our time, right? And if we set up those habits and we track and we know what our optimal intake is, we know what makes us feel good, we know the level of like fitness that we thrive on, and the level of sleep that we thrive on, and what it feels like to be hydrated and eating protein and vegetables, like all of those basic habits, you'll notice they both talked about those things, right? And just kind of their non-negotiables that they've maintained, even though they're eating intuitively now, they know what is important to focus on to feel their best and to really like just support their lives and support their health.
And there's so much happiness that is not necessarily connected to how we look. Like that's how, for me, like I'm focusing on other things in life that is not my body. You know, when I think about physique, because of course me being, you know, balanced and being healthy in that aspect, like internally, like that's important. I think that's very important for as a mental health as well. But, you know, taking that next step of thinking about physique, like that's, you know, that's not the only place to find happiness. It shouldn't be. Like then I think we are gone from it's not being healthy anymore. Like we need to see happiness and joy also somewhere else. And I think just experimenting with that through life, I think that's healthy.
Yeah. Well, there's learning in every stage for sure. So thanks for sharing where you're at. And if you guys have more questions, put them in the question box on the Zoom group chat, because this is something that I think a lot of people are scared to be in maintenance or a calorie surplus. And there's a lot of benefit from those stages. Like I would say most of the benefits come from being in those two stages most of the time. So tracking your macros and your calorie intake and getting all that data and learning is such a great process, and tracking is such a great tool to bring awareness. But you don't need to do it forever. And we don't really recommend that. Some people love that, but I would say most people shouldn't track their food forever. Like, use it as a tool, use it to learn, and then use that knowledge and no longer use the tool. So yeah.
That is also like being afraid of not tracking is not healthy. Like, so then if you're focusing on health, like taking you out of that comfort zone is something that I would definitely recommend at the right point, of course, maybe not in a deficit, but like when you've gotten to where you want to be, then slowly go away from it. That's also why spending a lot of time in maintenance while tracking is important, because you need that experience to feel safe not tracking in maintenance and feel in control.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Thanks, guys. And let us know if you have questions. We'll be on next week with Lindy, and we hope you guys have a great rest of your week.
Bye.